The OCD and Anxiety Podcast by Robert James Coaching. Hello and welcome to the OCD and Anxiety Podcast, where we explore how to have a more positive relationship with anxiety disorders, taking back control so that you can start living the life you choose and not the one chosen by your fears. Hello there and welcome to episode 358. I hope that wherever you are today you're doing well. Many people seem to be struggling with the snow, so if that is you, I hope that it isn't too bad and that you can get on with your normal life as soon as possible. And if you are struggling with OCD or anxiety this winter and you need some help with that, then you can get a free session with me. To get that, you can head over to my website, which is robertjamescoaching.com. There you can book in directly for that free session, or if you prefer, you can send me a message and let me know about what you're struggling with. Today's podcast is all about embracing choice for greater empowerment when it comes to OCD. With OCD, where uncertainty often reigns, today's focus is on the steadfast certainty of choice. It's about the little victories that come from the decisions you make each day and the incredible impact these choices can have on your life's canvas. So our conversation will really begin by understanding the nature of choice within the OCD cycle, how making intentional, mindful decisions can lead to an actual kind of profound sense of empowerment. And we'll break down the kind of dynamics between OCD impulses and the choices that actually give way to kind of us feeling like we have much more resilience and mastery over these frustrating and annoying intrusive thoughts. So I really hope that you enjoyed the episode. As always, if you find the podcast helpful, it'd be great if you could follow and like on Instagram. You could do that now if you fancy doing it. You could head over there and follow and like, and that would be awesome. Also, would you like to give the podcast a review? If you would, that would also be amazing. The more reviews, the better. So Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, that would be great. So many thanks, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe as well. And I really hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Off we go. I'd like to start with a quote from one of my favorite books, and that is Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor E. Frankl. And here's the quote. When we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that is our power to choose our response. In our responses lies our growth and our freedom. And this is really, really such an amazing quote. As it really points out to us, the importance of personal agency and the freedom that actually comes from our ability to choose our responses to the circumstances that life presents us. And often those circumstances can be very challenging, as in with OCD. We all know, if you struggle with OCD, you know only too well just how hard OCD can be at times, just how difficult it can be. And there's this frustration that comes along because people who don't struggle with it really don't get it. Even if they want to get it, they're not quite able to get it because, it's such a painful thing to be doing. We're kind of making these choices to perform these compulsions, even though we know a lot of the time they don't make any sense, that we don't need to be doing them, but we find ourselves doing them anyway because, the anxiety that we're experiencing, the underlying difficult emotions that accompany OCD are often so strong that, we kind of feel this necessity almost that we have to perform these compulsions. And sometimes we actually forget that we do really have a choice, that we are able to make a much more positive choice if we, are able to kind of maybe take a bit more of a bird's eye view of what's happening in the situation, to be able to be a bit more mindful, to slow down a little bit, to take a few breaths. But so often when we're in the midst of the OCD, it's so difficult to do that. The obsessions, the thoughts themselves can be so strong, so powerful, and it can leave us kind of reeling, like we feel that we're just not able to fight back. And I really feel that this is the big problem with OCD. What it creates in the people who struggle with it is a sense of disempowerment. And as you know, from listening to the podcast at the start, I always kind of talk about the same thing: taking back control so that you can start living the life you choose and not the one chosen by your fears. And the reason I came up with this is solely based on my own experiences with OCD. I felt for a long time that OCD was dictating to me how I could live my life and what I could do. And, that I was always going to be limited by my anxiety and by this OCD. And it's a horrible sense of disempowerment that comes about because of this. We really feel that we're not able to live our lives in the way that we truly want to because of this horrible OCD monster holding us back, pinning us down, refusing to allow ourselves to just be ourselves. We're so caught up in these kind of habitual thought patterns all the time. And it's this sense of disempowerment that really stops us from kind of being able to change. And so really what we have to recognize is that so much of that process is really about choice. When we look at the OCD cycle and we see that, after we have the obsession, the next step is that obviously we feel a lot of anxiety. And then, we kind of make this choice. The next step always involves a choice. As I have spoken about a lot, you cannot control the intrusive thought. Unfortunately, I kind of wish we could, but we can't. We get intrusive thoughts, and that's part of the process. And you can't control anxiety. You can control your response to anxiety, but if you experience difficult emotions in your body, you can't just push those away. You can't just say no to them, because if you do, like a basketball being hit off a wall, it's just going to come straight back at you, and that's really not what you want at all. You do not want a basketball coming off a wall and coming straight back at you. It could really, really hurt. And so it is with anxiety. When we try to kind of push it off that metaphorical wall, it comes back and hits us in the face, and we don't like it. And that's really what we're doing, when we make that choice, to start kind of pushing away the anxiety through performing all sorts of different compulsions. And there's many, many different compulsions depending on the many, many, many different types of themes that you may be struggling with. But really, it all comes back to the same kind of thing. We're performing these compulsions in order to kind of push away these difficult emotional experiences that we're having. And, the choice really, it comes in at that point. After we've been triggered and we're feeling that anxiety, what are we going to do next? Are we going to do the same old thing that unfortunately is going to keep us stuck? Or are we going to develop this sense of empowerment? Are we going to somehow start actually being a bit more mindful, a bit more determined and disciplined, a bit more focused? Are we going to focus on exposure and feeling our difficult emotions? Or are we just going to keep on doing the same things that have kept us stuck? Now, there's no judgment here at all whatsoever from me, because I've spent many years myself struggling with OCD. I know just how hard it can be to make those right choices in this situation. And occasionally I still get caught out myself and make, difficult kind of choices. I actually perform compulsions occasionally still. And, when that happens, do I beat myself up about it and get super angry about it and, get frustrated? Or do I try to kind of learn from that experience and do things differently in the future? And this is really what it's all about. I think a really important part of this process is acknowledging that sometimes, you might get caught out by a thought. In fact, it doesn't matter how far along the kind of recovery route that you might be with your OCD. At some point, from somewhere, from nowhere, perhaps, an intrusive thought might pop up, and you might respond with anxiety and that urge to perform that compulsion. And if you're not really paying attention and are aware of what's going on, you may indeed perform that compulsion. And so what do you do in that situation? As I said, do you get annoyed and angry with yourself? Hopefully not, although it is tempting. Instead, a helpful thing to do is actually just to acknowledge yourself. I just made a choice to perform that compulsion. Now, the difference here is this is actually empowering. When we recognize the fact that we actually just made that choice, that we chose to do that, that can really help us with this sense of disempowerment that really seems to underpin OCD. Because, even if you're making the wrong choices a lot of the time, if you start to kind of point out to yourself on a regular basis, oh, I just made a choice there to do that compulsion or to do this or to do whatever the compulsion might be. And before you do it, you just say, I'm choosing to do this. I don't have to. I can actually just put up with a difficult emotion and work on feeling it. And I say, just do that. Of course, it's not going to be that easy, but you could do that. But in that moment, you're not choosing to. And I think if we don't point this out to ourselves, if we don't get into the habit of pointing that out to ourselves all the time, whenever we are actually going to perform a compulsion or whenever we're doing it, then, we are going to feel disempowered because, we begin to lose sight of the fact that actually we are making these kind of choices whenever we decide to perform that compulsion. So just through this process of actually on purpose telling yourself, pointing out to yourself, I'm making a decision to do this. I'm choosing to do this. This is my choice and I'm going to do it. Even when you're doing the wrong thing, it can begin to build the sense of empowerment that, I do have that choice. And, recognizing that you do have the choice is really, the beginnings of being able to kind of tackle OCD and start responding to it in a different way. Obviously, once you realize that you've got that choice, then you can start expanding on this and building on this. What are the other tools that I can bring to the situation here? Can I bring a kind of spare of the moment exposure activity? Or maybe you've got an exposure activity that you've planned to do. Maybe you're going to use some diffusion techniques from acceptance commitment therapy to kind of help you to come back to the present and to focus on your values rather than kind of doing that compulsion. Can you focus on your emotions and what you're actually feeling in that moment and that urge to kind of escape the anxiety? Can you meditate, or can you take a bit of a bird's eye view on what's actually going on and try to take a few deep breaths? And does that help you to kind of, feel a bit more grounded and a bit more present? Whatever it is, it all starts with that ability to recognize that there's a choice there. And, this is so important. So, if you want to build that sense of empowerment, I think it's really important to start kind of focusing on this kind of thing, recognizing, the decisions that you're making and pointing out to yourself, even when you're making the decisions that probably aren't going to be helping you in the short term or the long term when it comes to OCD. So there we go, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed that. If you have any questions whatsoever about anything that I've spoken about today, do please let me know. And please don't forget to subscribe. It would be great if you could subscribe. So many thanks, guys, and see you next time. Just a quick reminder that if you want to get a free session, all you need to do to get that is to head over to my website, www.robertjamescoaching.com, and there you can leave me a message and we can arrange the free session. And now just a quick reminder of my disclaimer. Any information that you view on my website, Instagram page, Facebook group, or anywhere else online, or any information that you listen to on the podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for actual medical or mental health advice from a doctor, psychologist, or any other medical or mental health professional.